In this video, we bring the front panel and the back panel together and finish the control panel, and that's coming up next. The Control Panel Build Series brought to you in part by Electric Brewing Supply, supplier of turnkey control panels, complete DIY kits, as well as individual parts and components for your electric brewing needs. Use the link in the description below or visit them at ebrewsupply.com. Hey, how's it going? My name's Brian. I'd like to welcome you to the channel. If this is your first time here and you'd like to learn more about electric brewing, see how-to videos just like this one and all other home brewing related stuff, click the subscribe button and don't forget to click the bell so you don't miss anything. We are finally at the point where we finish the control panel, get it auto-tuned, get it ready to brew on. It has been very exciting. I'm not going to show a lot of crimping and stripping of wires and placement and screwing down things, so I'm just going to go through everything pretty quickly on this, explain everything as I go because we're pretty far along, and I think everybody pretty much has a good idea of how everything's going to go. But I do stop and take a few things apart with the interconnect circuit and the e-stop circuit, so there'll be a little bit of explanation there. If you do have a question about anything, feel free to comment down below and ask me a question. I'd be happy to answer anything that you might have. The first thing that I did was I took the SSRs and mounted them to the heatsink so that we could bolt it to the box. And one of the things you can do with that is put the paste on pretty thin with like a credit card or a business card. Wipe it very thin. You don't need a ton of that. Less is more in that case. You just want to be able to fill in the imperfections so that the heat can dissipate properly. The other thing I did for aesthetic purposes was I took the probe wires and actually labeled those. I didn't cut off the ends since they were already pre-made on there. And I ran those underneath of the back panel. Just make sure if you do that you secure them so they don't rub against the back panel and cause any kind of a short or anything like that. Okay, because the connections are so tight when you get everything back into the panel itself, I want to go ahead and trim these wires and connect them to the SSRs before I get the panel down in there, because once I get it down in there, it's just really difficult you won't be able to get these screws tightened up because everything butts right up against these breakers. So we'll go ahead and get these as close as we can to where they're going to go, and then we'll just trim them off, and we'll deal with that whenever we get it in there. So trim those off. Put that one up underneath that one. Get that back piece in here. Alright, so what had happened there was I had these probe outlets in, and they were sticking in way too far to be able to get the panel in there, so I had to take those loose. So just keep that in mind when you go ahead and put everything together. If you do like I did and run the wires underneath, you'll need to have those out of the panel when you go to put it together. So get the bolts in there, tighten down, and we should be good to go. Alright, so we've got the neutral wire that's run up to the light. We've got the element lights that are run to their lamps. We've got the blue and the purple pump wires. Blue wire goes to the water pump. Purple wire goes to the wort pump. And that pretty much rounds out all of the lower wiring portion. Oh, and then we got the safety interlock circuit that's coming up here to this side of the pump switch. So take a look at the other side. We've got the two power wires. These both run up to the safety interlock circuit. There are the two power wires here that run up to the indicator lamp for the entire panel power. We've also got the two wires. There's two wires that run off of the contactor, the main contactor, that go to the key switch. And then there are two wires, orange and yellow, that run to the contactor for the element switch. Those wires will both run here and then also to either side to their lamps, so that whenever this switch is turned either to the boil kettle or the hot liquor tank, you'll see which contactor is engaged. Alright, so we've got the wires all connected. The power and ground for the SSR for the boil kettle is here. Orange wire, black wire runs around, connects to here. We've got the hot liquor tank element control running around to the SSR over here. Then we've got the switch for the elements, the actual connectors themselves, running to this switch in the middle, and I've actually removed the two blocks for the safety interlock circuit So you've got one side runs from the connector around to the light and then on to the connector, the contactor itself. And then you've got the other one that runs the same around to the other contactor. So I will put all these back together to complete that circuit, and then we'll also discuss how the wiring runs from here. We've got a black wire that runs up to the other side of the NC block here. And then we've also got the other pink wire from the safety e-stop circuit that runs to the bottom block here. So I'll take this apart and kind of show a little bit more detail of that. All right, so before I take the block off of here to show you the connections underneath, this wire runs all the way down to the pumps and all the other 110 volt components. It's a loop that runs through the control panel. And it actually runs all the way back to the relay block inside of the panel that's part of that interconnect circuit. So that's where those wires actually run from. All right, so now with the block removed, you can see the two pink wires running underneath of the number 2 on the NC block on the key switch. So one of those runs through the whole circuit over here, and then the other one runs back to the other side of that relay block over there. The red wire right here comes from the breaker inside of the box, and it runs up to the NC side here. There's also a loop that runs around. Okay, so this black wire that is on the side, this side of the terminal here that has the jumper wire on, it actually runs up to the PIDs and the timer, so that all of these components, even if the e-stop is pushed in, these components here will actually still function and show temperatures, and that would actually just shut off the pumps and the element. So that is something that maintains power while everything else is going on. All right, so this brings us to the bottom of the panel. We've got all of the probes here, and then our water and wart pumps go here. Both of the receptacles go here for the elements, and then the actual power inlet, it goes here. And so we'll start wiring up all that stuff now. Incidentally, the way that these are wired here, the green is the ground, obviously, and then it doesn't really matter which terminal the hot wires go to. They're both the same pretty much on those. As far as the pump terminals, the black is going to be the hot wire, the colored wire, and then the silver is going to be the neutral wire, and then of course the green is going to be the ground. So with this, same thing with that ground. We've got both of the gold colored wire, gold colored lugs, those are for the hot wires, and then of course the silver is for the neutral wire, and we will wire it up accordingly. All right, so we got both pumps wired, neutral, ground, hot wire. Same way with the element receptacles, both hot wires and a ground. Power inlet, hot wire to one side of the main contactor, hot wire to the other side of the main contactor. Those don't really matter, but I kept them the same color on the other side, so 2 and 4 match 1 and 3 as far as colors go. Ground to the ground bar. You might ask yourself why the neutral is so small since the other wires are so large, but the 240 volt circuits don't have a neutral that's required. So the only thing that's required is a 14 gauge wire, because all the other components in the 110 volt system don't draw that much current. So that's the reason for the difference in the wire size. So, all right, so the last thing is not the least thing. There's a ground wire that needs to run from here over to the box on the inside, and then we'll make a little loop and it'll go up to this lug right here. So that'll be the last part, and then this needs to be installed into the socket over there, and there is a locator pin on that, so make sure that you get that lined up before you go to shove it in there. And that is that. All right, so what they use for a power cord is pretty much just a stock standard 4-wire dryer cable, and it has a bunch of connectors on it, which we'll cut all those connectors off. And then they have a twist lock plug for the inlet on the panel, and that comes with this sheath on the back side. Alright, so there we go. The cable is fully assembled. In the next episode, we will plug this thing in, turn it on, get it tuned up and ready to brew on. So as you can see, everything came together really well. I can't wait to plug that thing in, fire it up, get it going, see if I did my wiring properly. I hope I did. Ryan's been watching all along the way, so it should be exciting next episode to get it all auto-tuned and look at how everything works with the panel plugged in. And like I said, if you want to know more about electric brewing, be sure to hit the subscribe button. We appreciate all your comments and your feedback. This has been Brian for Short Circuited Brewers. We will see you on the next video next week. All right, moment of truth.